say hello to. The NES is the defining console for an entire generation of gamers. While the hardware was quickly eclipsed by more powerful competitors, the quality of the games available for the platform, along with Nintendo's marketing and third-party policies, gave the Big N an unfair advantage against the rivals who rose to face it. Of course, they're only rivals at all because of Nintendo's success at reviving a seemingly dead industry. Starting life as the Nintendo family computer in Japan, the NES quickly overtook its domestic rivals right out of the gate in 1983 and held the lion's share of the Asian market by 1985. Because of its runaway prosperity, Nintendo wanted to take the console overseas. Originally, they wanted Atari to handle the marketing, but that company was in the middle of a meltdown and the deal went belly up. After that happened, they charged a small American branch to make the console a success here, and that's what led to the console's American makeover, to look more like a VCR than a video game. It was initially marketed as a toy and started to take off, enjoying 5 years as America's console of choice. However, technology always marches on, and the NES couldn't stay the top dog forever. While the next generation of consoles had begun in 1989, it would take until 1991 for two events to signal the end for the aging NES: the advent of the Super Nintendo and the rising popularity of the Sega Genesis, propelled by games like Sonic the Hedgehog. These two consoles began to really eat into the NES's market share. While some of the best games the NES would ever see graced the console during this twilight period, they sadly sold poorly and would become some of the rarest and most sought-after titles on the console. Even a top-loading redesign didn't garner much interest from the gaming populace, and the console was finally put down in 1994. This, of course, only applies to America, as the Famicom continued to be supported in Japan until the early 2000s, making it one of the longest-lived consoles in history, and still the best performing in the land of the rising sun. First and foremost, there are two models to consider. The top loader is more reliable, but only has RF out, and is much pricier. On the other hand, the original can be a chore to get to work, but it has composite out and a lower price tag. Shop appropriately. If you're using an original model, any composite cord will do, while RF requires a setup that you should be familiar with by now. Both use the same AC adapter, and they aren't difficult to replace. Certain games use the zapper and similar devices, so a curved CRT TV is required for full compatibility. Those are dirt cheap if you have the space and back for them, of course. Controllers are also easy to come by, so there shouldn't be much of a problem there. Just make sure the console isn't having too much trouble running games before you part with your money, and request a cleaning if it is. If it still isn't learning games quickly, then consider getting a different one. There are a crap ton of gadgets and doodads for this console, but you should consider a turbo controller, a zapper, a power pad, a Game Genie, and a Honeybee adapter to play Famicom games on a domestic console. Avoid the Power Glove. It is so bad. Many NES games have found their way onto various game compilations and download services, so there are no shortage of ways to play the known classics. NES remains the most popular console for collectors at the moment, driving up the price of many of its games. Also, there are many affordable clone consoles that can replicate the experience of playing an NES cartridge without fighting with the original machine for half an hour. Those looking to get into playing hard carts should probably start there, while others should consider the Wii's Virtual Console for its wide variety of games running far less in price than the actual cartridges.